They thought they could treat him like nothing until she opened her mouth and left the entire room in shock. Have you ever witnessed a moment so powerful it completely flips the script on someone's cruel behavior? That's exactly what happened at this high-end restaurant. A wealthy guest thought she could look down on a waiter because of the color of his skin, but what happened next stunned everyone. You won't believe how one unexpected act of kindness and pure talent turned the tables in the most unforgettable way. It's a Friday evening, and the dining room at La Belle Époque is buzzing with the hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the faint notes of a pianist in the corner playing a soft jazz tune. The restaurant is nothing short of luxurious, crystal chandeliers casting a golden glow, polished silverware reflecting the light, and pristine white tablecloths adorned with fresh flowers. It's the kind of place where every detail screams elegance, and where diners expect nothing less than perfection. Among the staff working tirelessly to keep up with the demands of the elite clientele is Marcus Williams, a young black waiter in his late 20s. Marcus has been at La Belle Époque for 3 years, and he's one of the most reliable employees they've ever had. He's polite, attentive, and knows the menu like the back of his hand. Marcus has a warm smile that can ease even the toughest of guests, but tonight, his usual charm is being put to the ultimate test. Marcus isn't just working to make ends meet, he's working for a dream. His mother, Mrs. Williams, is battling a chronic illness, and his younger sister, Tasha, is in college studying to become a nurse. Marcus has been pulling double shifts for months to help pay the bills and keep his family afloat. It's exhausting, but he never complains. However, not everyone cares about Marcus's dedication or sees the man behind the uniform. Enter Evelyn Montgomery, a wealthy, entitled guest in her mid-40s, dripping in designer jewelry in a thick air of superiority. Evelyn is the kind of diner every server dreads, demanding, condescending, and impossible to please. She's here tonight with her younger cousin, Clara Thompson, and a group of friends. While Clara is kind and unassuming, Evelyn dominates the table, commanding the attention of her companions and, unfortunately, the staff. From the moment she walks in, Evelyn makes her presence known. She snaps her fingers at the hostess to be seated faster and raises her voice when the waiter doesn't bring her wine quickly enough. When Marcus approaches her table with a polite, "Good evening, ma'am. How may I assist you tonight?" Evelyn barely glances at him before handing back the menu with a dismissive wave. "Make sure my steak is medium rare." "And don't mess it up," she says sharply, her tone laced with impatience. Marcus nods, maintaining his professionalism. "Of course, ma'am. I'll make sure it's prepared exactly as you like." But Evelyn isn't done. As the meal progresses, she becomes increasingly unbearable. She sends back a perfectly cooked steak, claiming it's overdone. She demands extra ice for her water, only to let it melt untouched. She even criticizes the floral arrangements, remarking, "For a place like this, I'd expect something less basic." Her companions exchange uncomfortable glances, but no one dares to call her out, except for Clara, who occasionally offers Marcus an apologetic smile. Then comes the breaking point. As Marcus clears the table, Evelyn turns to him with a smirk, her voice loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "Is this the best you people can hire these days?" she sneers. The room falls silent for a moment. A few heads turn, and some guests glance at Marcus with pity. Marcus freezes for a fraction of a second, but quickly recovers, forcing a polite smile. He doesn't respond. He can't afford to. He knows that one wrong word could cost him his job, and his family depends on him. Inside, though, Marcus feels the sting of her words. It's not the first time he's faced this kind of prejudice, but that doesn't make it any less painful. Evelyn leans back in her chair, clearly satisfied with herself, as if she's proven some unspoken point. She snaps her fingers at Marcus again, her voice dripping with condescension. "Bring me the dessert menu, will you? Quickly this time." Marcus nods and walks away, his shoulders stiff but his head held high. He's determined not to let her break him, but the weight of the night is beginning to take its toll. Little does Evelyn know, someone at her table is about to stand up for Marcus in a way she never expects. Clara, who has been silently observing the entire ordeal, has had enough. And what she does next will turn the entire room's attention to Marcus, not as a waiter, but as a human being whose talent and dignity cannot be ignored. This is the moment where Evelyn learns that arrogance and cruelty can't overshadow true grace and humanity. At the same table, seated beside Evelyn, is her younger cousin Clara Thompson, a woman in her early 30s with an understated elegance. Unlike Evelyn, who thrives on attention and control, Clara is soft-spoken, empathetic, and more observant than she lets on. Throughout the evening, she's been silently watching her cousin's behavior, growing increasingly uncomfortable with every snide remark directed at Marcus. Clara has always been someone who values kindness. She was raised by parents who taught her to treat everyone with respect, no matter their station in life. Sitting next to Evelyn, however, feels like witnessing a masterclass in everything she despises: entitlement, arrogance, and cruelty disguised as humor. Every time Evelyn dismisses Marcus or makes another cutting remark, Clara feels a pang of guilt for staying silent. As the dessert course is served, the tension at the table is almost palpable. Marcus, with his unyielding professionalism, places a slice of decadent chocolate torte in front of Evelyn. Instead of a thank you, she barely acknowledges him, her expression one of disdain. She picks up her fork, takes a bite, and then sets it down with exaggerated disappointment. "Maybe I should sing for my supper next time," Evelyn sneers, pushing the plate away dramatically. "It'd probably be better than this." She laughs at her own joke, her shrill laughter cutting through the soft music from the pianist in the corner. But this time, no one else laughs. The rest of the table exchanges awkward glances, and the diners at nearby tables pretend not to have heard, though their discomfort is evident. Clara shifts uncomfortably in her seat, her face flushing with embarrassment. She glances at Marcus, who is now silently clearing plates from the table. His movements are measured, his expression calm, but Clara can see the tension in his shoulders and the way he avoids meeting anyone's gaze. She can't take it anymore. With a deep breath, Clara sets down her fork and does something no one expects. "I think singing for your supper isn't such a bad idea," she says, her voice steady but with an unmistakable edge. The entire table turns to look at her, their expressions a mix of surprise and curiosity. Evelyn narrows her eyes, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "What on earth are you talking about, Clara?" she snaps. But Clara doesn't answer her cousin. Instead, she turns her attention to Marcus, who is now standing frozen by the table, holding a tray of empty dishes. "You sing, don't you?" Clara asks, her tone warm and genuine. Marcus blinks, taken aback. For a moment, he's unsure if he heard her correctly. His instinct is to deflect, to keep his head down and avoid drawing attention to himself. But there's something in Clara's expression, an earnestness that disarms him. I used to," Marcus says softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Clara's face lights up with a gentle smile. "Would you sing something for us?" The entire table falls silent. The pianist in the corner hits a wrong note, his attention momentarily diverted by the unusual request. All eyes are now on Marcus, whose heart is pounding in his chest. Evelyn groans dramatically, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please, we don't need a performance. This isn't a karaoke bar." Her dismissive tone hangs in the air, but Clara doesn't flinch. She keeps her gaze fixed on Marcus, her voice soft but firm. "If you're comfortable, of course," she says. "But I'd love to hear you." For a moment, Marcus hesitates. He feels the weight of every gaze in the room, the uncertainty of how this could play out. Singing here, in front of these wealthy diners who see him as nothing more than a server, feels like exposing himself in a way he's never done before. But then he looks back at Clara. There's no judgment in her eyes, no pity, just encouragement. It's been years since he sang in public, years since he let himself believe he was more than his uniform. Finally, Marcus nods, setting down the tray he's holding. The room grows eerily quiet, the faint clinking of glasses and murmured conversations fading into the background. Marcus takes a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. He closes his eyes for a moment, summoning the courage he didn't know he had, and begins to sing. What happens next leaves everyone in the room utterly speechless. Marcus takes a deep breath, his heart pounding as he steps slightly back from the table to give himself space. The room feels impossibly quiet, the weight of every gaze pressing down on him. For a split second, he considers backing out. But then he looks at Clara, whose kind, encouraging smile gives him the courage to move forward. He closes his eyes for a moment, grounding himself in the music that once brought him solace during the hardest times of his life. Then, with a deep inhale, he begins to sing. The first note is soft, almost tentative, but it quickly grows, filling the room with a rich, velvety tone that's both soulful and commanding. Marcus chooses a classic, Sam Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come. It's a song steeped in history, one that carries the weight of struggle, resilience, and hope. As his voice flows through the room, it's as if time itself has stopped. Every fork is set down, every conversation ceases. The faint clinking of glasses and the murmur of the pianist's background music fade into nothingness. All that remains is Marcus and his voice. A voice so powerful and raw, it seems to vibrate in the very air. At first, some of the diners glance around, unsure how to react. But as Marcus reaches the first chorus, his voice swelling with emotion, something changes. The skepticism melts away, replaced by awe. People sit back in their chairs, their expressions softening as they absorb not just the beauty of his singing, but the depth of feeling he conveys. Even Evelyn, who had been halfway through rolling her eyes when Marcus began, freezes mid-gesture. Her lips part slightly as her face shifts from annoyance to shock, and finally, disbelief. She leans back in her chair, blinking as if she's not quite sure what she's hearing. But it's not just Marcus's undeniable talent that holds everyone captive. It's the story his voice tells. With each note, you can feel the pain of the struggles he's endured, the pride he carries in his heritage, and the quiet strength it's taken to endure the kind of belittling treatment he's faced tonight. It's as though the room is bearing witness to a deeply personal yet universal experience, one that transcends class, race, or privilege. By the time Marcus reaches the final verse, his voice cracks slightly, not from a lack of skill, but from the sheer emotion pouring out of him. The vulnerability in that moment is what seals it. It's not just a performance, it's a declaration of his worth, a reclamation of his dignity in the face of humiliation. As the last note fades, a profound silence hangs in the air. For a moment, no one moves. It's as if the entire room is holding its collective breath, unable to process what they've just witnessed. And then, like a wave crashing onto the shore, the applause begins. It starts with a single diner at a nearby table, who stands and claps, and soon spreads throughout the entire room. Chairs scrape against the floor as more diners rise to their feet, their cheers and applause filling the space that moments ago had been silent. Some people whistle, others shout words of encouragement. The pianist, who had stopped playing to listen, joins in the applause. Even the chef emerges from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron to see what's causing the commotion. When he hears the cheers and sees Marcus standing there, stunned and a little overwhelmed, the chef begins clapping too, a wide grin spreading across his face. At the center of it all, Marcus stands motionless, his chest rising and falling as he processes the scene before him. He never expected this outpouring of respect and admiration. It's almost too much to take in. Clara, still seated, is beaming. Her eyes glisten with unshed tears, her hands clasped together in front of her as if she's trying to hold back her emotions. She catches Marcus's gaze and mouths, "Thank you." Marcus nods, his voice thick with emotion as he manages to say, "Thank you." Clara stands and walks over to him, gently touching his arm. "You deserve this," she says softly, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. Meanwhile, Evelyn sits stiffly in her chair, her face a portrait of discomfort. Her cheeks flush a deep crimson, and her fingers nervously toy with the napkin in her lap. For once, the ever-confident Evelyn is at a loss for words. The attention is no longer on her, and the realization stings. She clears her throat, muttering something under her breath about needing to leave. With as much dignity as she can muster, she rises from her seat, grabs her purse, and excuses herself, leaving her untouched dessert behind. No one stops her. As Evelyn walks out, her steps hurried and her head bowed slightly, it's clear that the night didn't go as she planned. She came to assert dominance, but she left humbled in a way she never anticipated. Back at the table, the applause begins to die down, but the energy in the room remains electric. Marcus glances around, his gaze landing on Clara once more. For the first time that night, he allows himself to smile, a small, genuine smile that speaks volumes. Tonight, he's not just a waiter. Tonight, he's reminded of who he truly is. That night wasn't just a victory for Marcus. It was a lesson for everyone in the room. It was a reminder that kindness and talent can shine brighter than any amount of money or status. And for Marcus, it was proof that no matter how others try to diminish you, your voice, your true, authentic self, can make a powerful impact. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters, or watch the next video to see another moment of triumph.